Okay, we are already a little bit late, so I'm starting now. Let me first introduce myself a little bit. I'm Andreas from Studnitz, living in Aachen, Western Germany. I'm doing Magento since 2008, doing development and consulting and training and stuff like that. We are talking about problems today, and as we are at a Magento conference, it's not general problems, it's about Magento problems. And we all know there are Magento problems. What are the typical problems for developers? They can be bad code quality, low performance, conflicting modules. Magento can be hard to update depending on what you have into that. But these are in the context of today's small problems. So I won't talk about those problems. So, for example, this could be such a problem. One module which I've bought somewhere which has about 40 rewrites. No, this could be such a problem. It's a theme, a PHTML file which loads products several times in a loop. Can cause severe performance problems, but still, no, not today. Today we are talking about real problems. And real problems are about security, because security is what can really harm you and your shop. So one example, this is a blog entry by Byte. Byte is a Dutch hosting company, and they published that they discovered about 3,500 online shops which has been hacked half a year ago. So there was a hack inside 3,500 shops which was undiscovered more than half a year, and the hack caused credit card data being sent somewhere else. And how can that happen? This can be just one line of code. I have split it in three here so you can read it a little bit better. This is one example I found in a real shop while analyzing, and this is put into a file variant object which is called every request, and if that request contains admin or checkout, the whole request is saved, including all parameters, including all entered data like usernames, passwords, addresses, birth dates. In this case, not credit card data, but with usernames and passwords. You have the possibility to try those combinations in paper, for example, and in a not so small percentage it will work. So they stole about a few thousand username password combinations. They could log into the shop, and with a few dozen at least, they could log into PayPal. So in this example, customer data and passwords were stolen. This is one more example. This is a file which was put onto a server by some attacker, and it opened when the web shop should be opened, and it says that all the files have been encrypted because somehow they got access to the server, and they will only decrypt it if one Bitcoin is being paid. So you should absolutely try to avoid things like that. And to show that it's not one simple case where this happened, I've done a little Google search and found a couple of sites which have been affected by this hack. If you have a backup, it's not so severe, but you still have work to do, and you still have a downtime of perhaps a few hours, and it will still harm your business. So let's talk about the things developers, administrators can do wrong with Magento Shop. I'm doing mostly Magento 1 development up to now, just a little bit Magento 2 development, but nearly all the use cases I'm showing here are easily transferable to Magento 2. So the same attacks, the same failures work in Magento 2 the same way, more or less the same way. So let's start with number 10, that's downloadable code. This means all your code can be downloaded if you don't take care. And all your code means not only Magento code or Magento Enterprise code, which shouldn't go out to the wild, but also your custom modules, your board modules, and so on and so on. And every attacker who can download your code can scan this code and scan it for security issues. So for example, if you are doing deployment with Git and you don't secure your .git folder in Apache or in Nginx, everyone can access at least the important files, in this case even the directory listing, and if they can download all the files, and if they can download it, they can restore all the code on the local machine. No problem at all, and it's a common issue. So I did a little Google search and found a few dozen hits for open.git folder, and this shows only those which have directory listing enabled. And most have it disabled. So just try. One of our shops was affected too when this went public. So we had to close this down quickly. One other example, please don't put your code up to GitHub if you don't protect it. So this is an example which I found through a Google search. The whole code of a whole website put onto an unprotected GitHub repository. Don't do that, please. Problem top 9, downloadable data. Not downloadable code, but downloadable data. That's mostly about your customer data. Product data is not so important, but customer data, sales data, access data, database, not credentials, but tokens to access payment systems, and so on and so on. And for example, this is a case where I examined the shop which we were taking over in a code review, and in the main directory I found a few files which shouldn't be there. For example, this is export orders processed CSV. That's a CSV file which contains all orders which have been placed in that shop up to that point of time, and it contains first name, last name, email addresses, birth dates, and it contains all the items which have been ordered, so you can easily see which person has bought which products, and everyone who is competing with you would very much like to have such a list. Another point, which was more than 1,000 orders. The second file I found was an SQL file which contains the whole database, and every one of you can think that's even worse because you have more data in it, not only order data but all the customer data, but all the hashed passwords, and you can even try to access admin user data. So if you can decode the hashes, you can break into the shop from the admin side. Now you can say, if you don't know the file name, because it's a cryptic file name more or less, you can't easily guess it, and you can't download the data. But if someone really wants to, they can. There's a whole book about that. It's called Google Hacking, and I found 2 very interesting links which discover how someone gets access to these files, even if you don't know the names before. If you have someone who wants to have your data, it's not too hard to find such files which are in the main directory. Another case, don't put your SQL database dumps into GitHub if it's not protected. Don't do it there in any case, would be my suggestion, but if it's not protected by password, it's even much worse. So just another case I found by Googling. Not so difficult. No. Okay, top 8, unprotected executables. What's that? For example, the same case which I've been reviewing, it contains a file named rabbitflow.php. For most, it's not too dangerous because it needs some file of data, like a CSV file or an XML file, to be of any use. And if that file is not present, it doesn't import any products. RapidFlow is an importing tool. But the problem with this file is it doesn't only import, it also does indexing. It re-indexes all indexes, and it even does so if no data was imported. So you can, if you know about that file and you trigger it a few times in a row from one single computer, you can easily break down performance of that shop, so no one can shop there anymore. And that's the danger too. Another case, I don't know if you have seen it yet, it's a file called teamdb.php. It doesn't do what it says. It's not so bad, but it's still bad. It imports the database from a file. If no file is there, it's no big problem. If a file is there and you call it a few times in a row, the data gets imported several times simultaneously, and you can get data integrity problems with that too. So please, my advice, don't put any scripts into the main directory or into any directory which is accessible from the public, from the browser, in fact. At least put it somewhere where it's password protected. You should put your executables, which you will need now and then, into the shell directory. That's what it's for, and call it from the command line. You have even more advantages when calling it from the command line. So, for example, you don't run into memory limit or into timeout issues. And please remove unneeded scripts which have been there for a one-time import or for testing purposes or something like that. Top 7, unprotected database credentials. Of course, you know you shouldn't send everyone the username and password to your database. I have found it again with Google in several cases. You could just search for the file app etc local XML in Magento 1. This is the first case which only works in Magento 1 because Magento 2 uses a PHP file for that and you can execute that. But for Magento 1 it's a huge problem. You can find usernames and passwords, hundreds of them, literally, and if you haven't set up your database in a way that it only accepts connections from localhost or from certain IPs, you can break into the database, create new admin accounts and log into the shop. So don't remove the initial protection of app etc local XML. It's there if you're using Apache. If you don't use Apache but Nginx, for example, there are manuals how to do that, but it's not configured by default. So please take care of that. Just one more example I found via GitHub. Here the file may be protected, but it's available on GitHub, so you can try out, do a MySQL connection to the site, and if you're a little bit lucky, it will work. Top 6, unsecured admin. Why is that a problem? I think you can guess yourself. If anyone can log into your admin, he can see all your customer data, excluding passwords. He can set new passwords for everyone, every front-end user, back-end user, create new ones. But there are worse things you can do with admin access. For example, you can adjust the configuration. You can adjust the email address which is used for PayPal. So all payments which are done by PayPal are going to a different email address, to a different PayPal account, and it may take a few days until you discover that. Or another example, there's a config field where you can put in arbitrary HTML or JavaScript which will get executed on every page, and if you put JavaScript on the checkout page where credit card credentials are put in, you can easily steal database credentials. So this is not a thought out example, but this is a true example which has happened, and which has which merchant has paid more than $50,000 for. They had a presentation at Magento Imagine about that, and it took weeks until they found out how this really happened. So my advice, don't use the default admin username or password. There are a few default passwords like test123 or even one of the top 1000 passwords. It will be guessed sooner or later, especially if you have a username like admin or the name of your shop. So these are the first things which will be tried out by an attacker, and I know there are brute force attacks, so don't choose your usernames and passwords too short, otherwise it's quite easy to hack them. What you should do too is changing the admin URL, so it's not /admin, but it is something else, whatever, like a cryptic combination or area 42 or whatever. Just do anything else and it will be much harder for an attacker to find it out. And last but not least, there's also the downloader directory, which is a Magento Connect Manager in Magento 1, which can be used to download modules, download updates for Magento. First of all, a professional developer shouldn't use that, and his merchant shouldn't use that. And second, you can't easily change that URL by just setting a configuration option or something like that, like you can with admin. And as that, from there you can get into the admin area. Or, on the other hand, if you're in the downloader, in the Magento Connect Manager, you can easily upload any extension. And if you upload any PHP code, which can be called from outside, you are in the system. You can create a shell, you can create database access, you can read database credentials, you can do what you want, more or less. So please remove the Magento Connect Manager. You can try to hide it or to secure it, but my recommendation is just removing it. Just take care when you're updating to a new Magento version, it will be there again, so you have to remove it again. Top 5, Unsecured Tools. There's one screenshot which says it all. Even if you can't read it, it's about the MagMe tool, which is a tool for importing products into Magento 1. Again, not Magento 2, but it's only a matter of time until tools like that will exist. The manual says you should protect it, but it is not enforced, and you can easily set it up so it isn't protected and everyone can access it through the same URL, the same path on every site, and it's installed on quite a few Magento instances, so it's not so hard to try it out on a list of Magento instances. And there are a few problems with it. The easiest problem is you can upload new products with that, including, for example, attacks like new JavaScript files which get loaded on the product detail page. But it gets worse. For example, we have the feature to update MagMe itself, to upload a new release of MagMe, and yes, you can download MagMe from their homepage, but you can also modify that downloaded version and put into that anything you want, and so you get access to the server. This was removed in the newer version, so we don't have this option anymore. And last but not least, as you can see here in this field, someone already has tried to access it and to attack it. To call what has been sent in a get parameter, just like it was on the command line. So don't put any management tools on your site which you can't protect or which you don't protect. I've seen other cases like a configurator which you can easily configure itself. or like a shipment return management tool which you can use to access any shipment and so any customer data. Please take care to protect them. Okay, top 4, patches not applied. I'm sure you all know that. From time to time there are security issues in Magento, and we can be lucky that they are fixed and communicated since a while, since 2 years or so. And please apply the patches, especially the critical security patches. We didn't have one in the last few months, but before we had a few patches, and if you don't apply them, you can get into huge problems. For example, someone can take over your shop, someone can upload arbitrary files, someone can access your customer data, and so on and so on. One example, it's shoplift bugs. That's the most well-known bug, which was communicated and patched in February 2015, 1.5 years ago, and it allowed the attacker to lift the shop, to take over the shop in general. And recently, a few months ago, still more than 50,000 shops were attackable, vulnerable to this. And it's statistics by Byte, the Dutch hosting company, which has an overview of installed Magento systems on the web, and they are scanning regularly 2,000 and 50,000 shops, and nearly 1/5 of them, nearly 20% of them are still vulnerable after more than a year. Top 3, insecure modules. If you put a module in your shop and the module has a security issue, an attacker can do whatever. For example, take over your shop, if you can create admin users with it. Those security issues can be by accident, if the developer made a mistake, or they can even be on purpose. So there have been modules in the past which have been modified to, for example, allow self-update or allow backdoors into the system. So they are really dangerous. Just one example from Twitter: if you find such code in a module which is base 64 encoded a few times, or if it's just code which has made unreadable by an obfuscator, this is #1 reason why I wouldn't install such a module in my shop unless I have removed such code, or know exactly decrypt its code and know exactly what it's doing. But in general, this is a no-go. You never know what has been included there, and you have to be really careful. So my advice is please look at every module you are installing into a shop. Not only look at it, but really analyze it. Go through it line by line and scan it and see if there are any security problems or performance problems. Can be a problem too. So do a review on every module you are installing. The only exception I'm doing is if it's a module of a developer I know quite well. For example, I would install vNice modules at once, or modules by Fabrizio Zanca. Top 2, database tools, which are available on the site, like PHPMyAdmin. I'm getting to the shop which inspired me to have this talk. It's a Swiss online shop. I was working for a Swiss customer, an agency who was taking over or who was asked to take over the shop, and I should do an analysis, a code review to see if the quality is okay, if it's on an up-to-date state, if there have been no core hacks, and so on and so on. And one of these points has been, of course, security. And the first look when it's about security is in the main directory. Again, a Magento 1 shop. I don't mention a database SQL or I think there was a PHP info, PHP at this point too, which you can use to easily see how the server is configured, but that's not worth for number 2 in the list. That's the db-m.php file, which you can call from the outside. As you may have guessed, it stands for database management.php, and in fact it's a tool like php-myadmin, it's adminer, which only needs one file and which can be used to access the database. And you see regularly, at least I'm following news about php-myadmin. I think it's the same with every other database management tools, and there are security issues. And if you don't have it on the latest version, you are for sure vulnerable. But that's not the worst. The worst is the developer who used this tool to manage the database pre-filled username and password. So he didn't have to look them up. He just had to press enter, or anyone else had to press enter, and he's in the database. Can create a new admin user, change the configuration, whatever he wants to do. So, at least if you absolutely need to have a tool like php-myadmin on your site, there may be a reason. Protect it. Protect it with a username and password, and at least one more layer of security like an htaccess basic auth protection. So not everyone can get into that. Okay, let's get to the number 1. It's from the same shop again. I'll tell you after that what it's about. I'll tell you just, I found it in this file. It's cmd-vcp.php. Could mean anything. So I had a look at this file. I called it from the front end, and it's just a text line and a button where you could click execute and the file name below, and this is the code which is behind. And I point out the most critical parts of this script, and I already hear many of you already have understood what it's about. Let me explain for the others. It accepts a post parameter, which is put into the script via the form, and if this parameter is set, it gets executed. So it's just a command line call via a web form. And with a command line call, you can do anything. Also new modules. Of course, only if user rights allow that, but if you are administrating a server and put in such a file, I wouldn't trust the user access rights being set correctly. So my number 1 is backdoors. They may be intentional, they may be more or less unintentional, but in every case you should never have backdoors in your shop. Even
secured by the password or things like that?
If you absolutely must, you can secure them and put them in, but with any decent shop you should have command line access, and that's a much better way to have that. And if you are taking over a shop which is on a shared hosting where you don't have command line access, the first thing I do is change the hoster. And use a hoster which allows for basic security. So, that's it. Yes, for now. If you have any more examples, just tell me.
Pardon? Just tell me your URL.
Yeah. I'd like to have more examples. I'll be happy to post it. I think I'll do a blog post about that and analyze Magento 2 for those security issues soon. So if you have any, please just contact me with it. So to have a conclusion, real problems can be stolen user data, stolen payment data, server misuse by hackers, or even close down, server unavailable, which can be a huge financial problem, server hold to ransom. And how you can avoid them, follow the security basics, which have been told many times, but you can never say it again. Security by obscurity doesn't work. You must keep your Magento and PHP and Apache and whatever up to date, and your modules and your tools. So really take care of that. Please stay informed, subscribe to the Magento security list. Double check if you have any freely accessible files, which are not default files, if they can be misused. Don't trust anyone, especially don't trust extension vendors. If they offer installation support and you use that, they can do anything on your server. And I have seen a case where this must have happened. We can prove it, but there was a case where only something like that may have happened. Don't trust easily. Do code reviews for shops, for modules, whatever. One last recommendation, that's magereport.com. You can check your shop, any shop, for free using magereport.com. Just put in the URL of your shop and you get an overview of the most common security issues, if they have been fixed, if they could be detected or not, and if you're green, it's good. You can be quite sure that you are not in the top 50% of for any attacker, and if it's not green, you have to take action. Thank you.